Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Talks with Stacey. I'm so excited that you are here today as we are getting ready for our fourth annual Mental Health Awareness Summit. And we get to prep you every Tuesday as we prepare for this wonderful experience that we try to create during Mental Health Awareness Month. So, just to remind you, our summit is going to be Saturday, May 3rd from 12 noon to 4 p.m. at the UWM Sports Complex in Pontiac, Michigan. Our theme this year is From Trauma to Triumph, Healing the Heart, Mending the Brokenness. We have, backed by popular demand, our keynote speaker, Dr. Sabrina Jackson, native of Detroit. We also are going to experience some comedic relief from comedian Stefan. We have our Mistress of Sermon, Miss Katrina Storm from Detroit as well. And we are going to be giving you a replica, a quadruple experience where you come to experience mental wellness on a whole nother level. This is completely free to you and to everybody around you. So I want you to load your car up and bring everybody on that special day, Saturday, May 3rd. So today, as a prelude to this experience, we want to introduce you to our keynote, one of our breakout session speakers, breakout session speakers. We have with us our special guest today is Kristen Taylor, a licensed professional counselor. And actually, Kristen was with us last year, and her sessions were so good that she made it to our reviews. Like, oh, we really enjoyed this breakout session. So Kristen is back again by popular demand. So, hi, Kristen. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to have you start off by introducing yourself to our guests. Some of them may not have been here last year when we did our interview or participated at the summit. So I want you to take some time to introduce yourself so they can know a little bit more about you before we go into our discussion this evening.
Okay. So yes, my name is Kristen Taylor. I am a licensed professional counselor. I have been a therapist since 2017, and I am a mother, a wife, ex-educator.
Okay.
And I'm just somebody who is wanting to help people, women of color especially, find better arenas for mental health awareness and growth.
Oh, wow. And that's like really good for everybody right now, right? One of the things I like to say is progress never stops. It's a continuous process, right? And continuing to heal and recover. So I want to welcome you back because last year you joined us to be a part of our summit experience. And what was that like for you? Like somebody's saying, okay, what's the big deal about this mental health awareness summit? What would you say to them?
You know what? The vibe, the environment, the energy is there. The healing energy is there. I know I loved Dr. Jackson's speech last year. I'm looking forward to it again this year. I am going to be encouraged myself. So, as a therapist, if I'm getting encouragement, I know it encouraged everybody else that was there. But then, everybody was just open and engaging. So like you just had so many different avenues you could go. You would find the person that you would want to work with.
Absolutely. There's so much to do. It's not just even the keynote speaking. We have wellness activities and we have vendors and community resources. And it's just like this, like you said, the energy is constant for the entire time that we are dealing with this experience. So thank you for kind of giving us that shout out, Kristen. So Kristen is going to be one of our breakout session speakers. And during the breakout session, we have like an hour to really discuss and to talk about topics that are related to our theme. And this year, Kristen's topic is going to be coping with grief, the brokenness of the heart. And one of the things that we know that can be traumatic is grief. Losing someone, something, or having an experience that really involves significant loss can be hard on anybody. So I'm gonna have you start off by talking about, Kristen, how would you define grief just for somebody out there to kind of say, is this me? Am I going through some form of grief right now? How would you define that?
I'm this type of person. I always am looking to learn more, get statistics, things like that. But I'm not gonna bore y'all with statistics today. Grief by definition is an emotional response to a loss. Wow. However, I think of grief more as the expression of the perceived loss, because it's not, everybody's loss isn't the same. There's not a definition of what loss is or what loss is not. We try to come up with these definitions to put everything in a box, but you can't box up grief. People can experience grief from so many things, but Kristen Taylor, LPC, definition of grief is the emotional response to a perceived loss.
Yeah.
And that can come out in many forms.
Absolutely. And then with that being said, it sounds almost like it's a subjective experience. So the person that's experienced this perceived loss is who define whether they're in grief, right? Not necessarily me looking to say, oh, they got fired. No, they're grieving the loss of a job. Maybe not necessarily, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So when you think of grief and that definition, how would you describe the impact of grief on an individual?
Yeah. So, just like you said, it's subjective for sure. I have worked with clients that have experienced like a physical loss, of a spouse or a child or a parent. I myself have experienced, that type of physical loss. But then we got also people that have experienced loss of just identity.
Wow. That's good.
When we think about even women, sometimes we experience grief or loss around, who we thought we would be at this point in time of our lives, or what we thought our children would be like, or what we thought our marriage would be like, or what we thought our career would be like, or what we thought we would be like, what we thought our religious relationship would be like. All of those things can also, cause grief to us. But how we deal with it, honestly, the core of it is the same. We really are just like broken just from whatever the loss was. And if we don't recognize it, kind of find a way to even know that that's what we're dealing with, it can take us out. You have to be able to find that, something ain't right. I'm going too far off the deep edge, or I'm not talking to people like I used to. It can impact you. It can take you out, but it also can impact you in a positive way. But you have to be able to recognize that.
And so how would a person know that they're grieving? What does that grieving look like?
It could look like you pulling away from others. It could look like you getting invited to things and not going. It could look like you just trying to take the world by storm, and maybe you might have an overabundance of anger and just acting out in a negative way. It could also, come out in like anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, feeling hopeless because you feel like that grief is stronger than your will to live or what you have to look forward in the future. It really can be that devastating if you're not able to catch it.
Absolutely. I often say grieving is like a roller coaster. because it's never a linear experience. One day you can feel okay and the next day you don't, you
Right.
know. One day you can say, oh, I'm getting better day by day, and then the next day feel like a ton of bricks. So it's like it's an all different process.
Mhm.
But I think the first thing is being able to identify that something is missing, something is gone that you were anticipating or looked forward to.
Absolutely.
And then being able to assess yourself to see, how am I dealing with this?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said one day you're good, one day you're not. 1 minute you're good, 1 minute you're not.
Or not, for
That
sure.
when I'm working with people, or even just, I speak at my church a lot for our mental health moments with our women's groups. And, I talk about how it's not linear at all.
Never
It's
ever.
not predictable. Grief is not
Mm-mm.
predictable. Besides the fact that you're going to have some ups and downs. Other than that, you can't say, oh, you get to this point, you'll be okay. Oh, you get to that point, you'll be okay. Every moment is a new moment
For
with
sure.
new possibilities of joy and new possibilities of grief. But I think it's important for us to be okay wherever we are at that moment.
And that's what I like to tell my clients too. It's okay. Like, no matter what that's the circumstance is, when you're dealing with grief, you have to begin to tell yourself it's okay. You may not be able to show up for people the way you want to. It's okay. You may not be able to make it to work like you want to. It's okay. You may not even look the way you want to. It's okay. Just, like being okay with the journey, because it's so hard. And not even, I think for me, one of the hardest things I find out about grief is not understanding why.
Mm.
Like being stuck in the why am I going through this? Why is this happening to me? Some people get stuck in the why. And being even okay with that until you get understanding or you get some form of relief. Just be okay with where you are in the process. So when you think of grief, would you say, and I know you kind of started off by talking like there are different types of grief, right? So how would you even, and I don't want to give away your conversation on the third. You're gonna have to show for this one, because this is a heavy one. And the reason why I say that is, on some level, everybody has dealt with grief or loss, right? And I like when we talked about their variety of things that we could be expressing as a loss. So we all can fit in some way in this process, right? But how do we start off to say, how do you deal with grief? And we talk to our listeners tonight. What do we say to them? How do we deal or begin to deal with the reality of grief?
We already kind of touched on the first one. Acknowledge it. You gotta acknowledge it. I remember growing up big in the church. I had several things that I went through growing up. I grew up, I had, genetic issues that affected my whole entire body.
Okay.
And I recall going through some of these grief of things that I never thought I would experience. Okay. So, I thought that I would never live past 12. I thought that I would never have kids. Here I am, way past 12 with 2 children, and during that time, I felt that grief over what I anticipated not being able to do.
Wow.
But I also recall hearing, well, if you don't have a problem or there's nothing that needs to be fixed, how can it be fixed? So you have to acknowledge that so that you can have the right, tools and people interact with you to help you through this process. So you definitely have to acknowledge it. Then once you acknowledge it, seek support from people that you can trust. Seek support from people that have good head on their shoulders. I don't know, go to a therapist. If you're not ready to go to a therapist, talk to somebody who goes to therapy. In our community, therapy is not necessarily always something that we run towards.
That's it.
So even out of everybody's group, you will find at least one person that is actively in therapy. talk to them. Like, oh, I don't know. I'm wondering, should I get a therapist? I'm sure they're probably going to tell you should, but also understand that they understand that there was something that they needed from therapy as well. So they might be, they should be able to encourage you and build you up to where you don't feel ashamed for going to seek it out, Of course, take care of yourself. Listen to your body. Your body tells you when grief is like, go sit down for a minute. Take a break. Your body tells you when it needs to release some of the tension or some of the grief or some of the sorrow. Let it come out. Of course, be patient with yourself. Like you tell your clients, you got to be patient with yourself. If you're feeling this way right now, sometimes you got to let yourself feel it.
Yeah.
You have to. You can't be super person.
And it's okay.
It's okay. I'm not going. I have a girlfriend of mine that I would say is my best friend now. Going through my grief process, I was that person that kind of isolated.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with nobody. Only child, to an only child. I felt alone when I lost my mother. And I had this one friend that would continuously reach out to me. She would reach out, text, hey, we're doing this. Hey, we're doing that. Come over. I would always turn her down, but she never stopped texting me. And then once I was kind of coming out of that depression from the grief and then anxiety from the grief, thinking, oh, something else is going to happen. Who's going to be next? All those things, I was able to recognize that she understood what I was going through because she had experienced her own grief. Okay. And she knew that just because I wasn't ready then, I was eventually going to be ready. We have to remember that for ourselves because when we're in it, we don't think that. We think I'm always.
Sure. You never get out of this.
You're never going to get out of it. You will get out of it.
Yeah.
You will get out of that funk. Now, will you get out of grief? Grief is a process. I don't necessarily believe it's a 1-year process like the DSM says. Like, nah. Grief is a lifelong process because there are different things, different milestones that you go through. And then lastly, the most important thing, I think, once you've recognized, once you've started to take care of your body, once you seek support, you have to make rituals.
Wow, that's good.
A lot of times when we go through grief, we kind of like we said, we isolate, we step back. We avoid the things that we used to experience with those people or those places or that job. Just because you are no longer working in that field does not mean you have to isolate yourself from that network of people. You have to build that back up. Even, with the loss, maybe you and your spouse, or maybe you lost a spouse and you guys used to watch the show together. You can't avoid that show. You have to build new memories around that show. Go out to eat. I celebrate my mother's birthday and she is deceased. I'll party hard. That's one of the rituals. If my mother was here, I would be taking her to get seafood or Chinese food, one or the other. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create this ritual, which will also allow the people that came after her to understand kind of who she was, Yeah. The kids, my son, he was 4 when my mother passed. So some things I'm like, you don't remember that? He's like, no. My daughter, who's 16, she's like, you don't remember that? There's things that he would never have gotten if I did not create those rituals, right?
Absolutely.
So creating those rituals, I think those will be the biggest things I would say, just offer.
For sure. I have a client that lost her child like during labor, right? So, traumatic grief. And one of the things that we work on every month that on that particular day is to do some form of memorial. And at first it was hard, but it has become so much easier for her to expect to celebrate the life of her child and to ensure that no matter what happens in the future, this child is always a part of that memory. And watching her go from a place of not being able to even talk about it to being able to say, I'm looking forward to doing this form of memorial this month. as a way to say we're making sure that we keep that conversation alive about what was something that was traumatic has now become a part of her everyday life, right?
Yes.
And incorporating that, like she's gone, but she's still your child. You still have a daughter, had a child, and it's just important. As you said that, I thought about that practice that we incorporated in therapy is having that ritual to ensure that you keep that memory alive, bring joy into your heart. So that's super good. I like those takeaways, and I know that on May 3rd we're going to have some more. So make sure you are present. And finally, as we get ready to wrap up, how would you encourage our audience, our members, or somebody today that's dealing with grief? Like, what's something encouraging that you would say to them?
You're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. There is it's funny to say it sometimes, seems a little insensitive, but there is a club of others like you. You are not alone. It is a high price to pay to be a member of this club. But once you have been here and you understand how to go through this process, you have to go back and help others come too.
For sure.
So, finding your tribe, find your tribe of people that know what you're talking about. They're not guessing, they know. Yeah. And you're not alone.
Awesome. Something that just popped in my mind is we have to also remember the individuals that have so much grief that they're so numb to the experience. And maybe that's something that we can, you can include in your conversation, because we have people who lose so much that they're just like numb. And they may be able to relate and sometimes may not be able to support because they're just like so numb to their experience and how hard that can be. So, we definitely want to think about you as well, to remind you that, there is support and there is just love for you, everybody who's experiencing grief today. And, we know that you're not alone. I'd like that Kristen reminded you, you're not alone. So, Kristen, we are getting ready to wrap up our conversation. Again, this is just a sneak peek, but Kristen will have an entire hour with you on May 3rd to talk about grief and for you to talk with her. This is going to be a conversation. Her session went so long last year that we were wrapping up. Everything was cleared up. We were getting ready to leave. And Kristen came in the main auditorium, and I was like, "Did you leave something?" And she said, "No, I'm just getting done." She's like, "Our conversation was so intimate, so personal that I could not get the people to stop talking." Yes. And people walked away like with just that moment of intimacy, talking about their emotions and just kind of healing. Yeah. So we want you to be there, because we have these breakout sessions because people ask for them, and I'm glad that people are using them. But make sure you come out on May 3rd to connect so that you can walk away with some ways to deal with grief. So, Kristen, we are wrapping up, but how can we find you? Is there any way that we can find you? We can connect with you when on after May 3rd or even before May 3rd. Can you tell us how we can get a hold of you?
You know what? You can find me on Facebook at itstimecounseling.com, or that's my Facebook page. Okay. I'm not good with the social media. That's my baby stuff. I'm sorry, y'all. But you can find me on Facebook. It's time counseling.
It's Time Counseling. Okay. All right, cool. So we can find Kristen on Facebook at It's Time Counseling, because sometimes people just want to connect, and I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to connect with you. So,
and even better, connect with me on May 3rd.
That's it. There you go. That's the best connection is May 3rd. Yes. All right. So before we end tonight, I want to encourage you, remind you, okay, on May 3rd. So we have opportunities for vendors. We still have vendor slots open. We have there we go. We have volunteer opportunities, partnership opportunities, or partners. We thank you because without our partners, we could not make this event free. And our partners play a significant role. So we want to thank all our partners out there. They're on the screen. We want to thank you so much for making this event possible and free to our community. And then you have our vendor slots. Our vendor slots are open and available right now. So you want to go ahead and click on that QR code for our vendors, and then you want to register for the event. When you register, it just gives us an idea because we are preparing for so much, and we want to make sure that we're counting you in. And so use those QR codes real quick and get what you need: the volunteer, partnership, vendor, and registration. And thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on May 3rd from noon to 4 while you spend some time with us talking about your mental health and how to improve it. So thank you, Kristen, for being here with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you on May 3rd. Not just Kristen, but you as well. See you and you and you on May 3rd. Have a good night. Bye.